Welcome to Movies, Music and More, a podcast that explores, breaks down and analyses the music of modern day media. I'm James.
I'm Andy.
And this is Lassie. Join us, your guides, as we dive into some of the greatest scores of the century and uncover the secrets and genius hidden within.
Welcome back to Season 3 of Movies, Music and More.
Yes!
It's been a while.
Yeah,
It's
it's been 4 months, 5 months, somewhere between that time.
Yeah, we finished up Season 2 at the end of last year with Love Actually around Christmas time.
Yeah.
And then we were pretty geared to go at the start of the year. And then Andy is in that wonderful part of being a teenager where his mouth has been filled with metal and all these various contraptions, braces, all that stuff. So we thought we could either go ahead and record and you'd hear me talking and then just noises from Andy and just you could barely understand you for a few weeks there, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. So we were like, we'll delay a little bit. But having said that, we've spent all this time planning out a pretty great lineup of scores for this year, I think. I'm pretty excited.
And also, while you're listening, we just need to let you inform you on a couple of new things. One, we have our own YouTube channel now, which you are welcome to come like and subscribe. There is a teaser trailer for what we have planned for this year. You are welcome to watch it. We also have a Instagram page.
Yeah.
And
our socials are well and truly set up at this point, aren't they?
Indeed.
Yeah.
And also, we do have merch in the development.
That's exciting.
Haven't released it yet. Still figuring that out.
Yeah.
Who knows when it's going to be released?
Andy has been working hard at getting some of this stuff together, like getting some merch. I was really impressed. One day you were just like, hey, we've got some merch, and you showed me the store and everything. It's looking really good. So we had to get a mug or a shirt or a tote bag, or we're trying to get little plushies of Lassie. That'll be cute.
Yeah,
maybe wearing a little Movies, Music and More shirt or
Yeah,
something.
I'm still trying to find someplace.
Yeah, it's great. But as you said, we've got all our socials set up now and all that sort of thing. You can listen to the podcast on just about any podcast platform, which is great too.
Yep.
As Andy said, please, if you enjoy listening to this podcast and you want to hear more, do leave us a rating. I say that not in the sense I don't love doing a plug where leave a rating so we can get around more, but this is very much for Andy and I a passion project. We love doing this. And so when we see that someone also loves hearing what we do, it gives us a real kick. It gives me a big it's a really great motivator and things to know that other people are enjoying what we're doing. So it's more of a building a bit of community. If you really like this show and like hearing us, rate it and please comment in or email in. Our email is contactmoviesmusicandmore@gmail.com. That's also going to be in our podcast description, so you can have a look there for it. And email in with anything, your thoughts on the show. Maybe you have a score that you really like and want us to break down. We're certainly open to suggestion.
Certainly.
Just get in touch. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And also, if you do have any questions or, I don't know, anything else, questions.
Yeah, or insights. Maybe
Insights.
you heard something in a score that we missed. And that'd be really cool. I'd love to hear. We try and do a lot of analysis and figure these things out to then tell you, but maybe you've picked up on something and it's you can tell us and then maybe we can share it back and forth and it'll be great. It'll be fantastic. But anyway, we are starting off this year with the music for Transformers, the 2007 movie.
Yay!
Yay! Oh, yay! No, I'm not sure about that applause sound. Some people might be wondering why we're doing Transformers. It's not necessarily the most critically acclaimed of movies, maybe not the most well received. Why are we doing Transformers, Andy?
So we made a deal. Technically, I said, I want to do Transformers, and you said, it does have good music. And you said, if we're going to do Transformers, then we're going to have to do Love Actually.
Yeah.
I held up my part of the bargain.
Yeah.
I watched Love Actually.
Yeah.
I nearly died. Now it's your turn to hold up the bargain.
Yeah. So basically, we made a deal last year. I thought Love Actually would make a really great Christmas episode. Andy vehemently did not want to do Love Actually, and as you would have heard if you listened to that episode, he loved it in every way. Really turned him around on that one. Now, as you said, as much as I don't particularly love the movie, the saving grace of this film is its music. That's where I had to admit that, hey, there's actually some pretty great music in this movie. And really, we're doing this as your choice because Transformers is like your obsession. We've mentioned it before on the podcast before. But
$2,000 down the well. No regrets.
yeah, of various Transformers merchandise figurines. We've got display cases in your house full of Transformers. It's a bit crazy. Yeah, but it really is your like. If we were talking about how The Incredibles was kind of one of my childhood favorite films. Transformers has been your thing in childhood, and then I suppose once you've been old enough to watch the movie, you're a pretty big Transformers movie fan.
Yeah.
So since you are the resident Transformers expert, I'm almost wary to ask for some info from you because I'm scared of how long we could be stuck. Andy's got a very evil look on his face right now. I'm wary of how long we could be stuck here. So I think, try to give us a succinct background on the Transformers franchise. And I'll just turn your mic off when I get sick of it. Anyway, over to you. Yeah, so tell us a bit about Transformers.
So Transformers, the actual toys weren't made in America. They were made in Japan during the 1970s as part of this thing called microchange and Diaclone.
So it started with the toys.
It started with toys. Japanese toys. So all the Transformers, Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Megatron, Soundwave, they all had a different name. Optimus Prime was, I can't remember his name now, but Bumblebee was Robocar, Megatron was Gun Robo, and Soundwave was Cassette Man.
And if you've never, ever had anything to do with Transformers, that's the name of the various main sort of Transformer characters. But, what is a Transformer, Andy? In case someone really doesn't know.
A Transformer is a living robot which comes from outer space from a planet called Cybertron.
So they're aliens.
Yeah, they're aliens. And they have emotions, they can feel pain, they feel love, they feel joy, human emotions, and they've been stuck at war for the past couple of million years.
And are you going to mention the transforming element of the Transformers?
Yes, also. So they can also turn into a car or a plane or any sort of machinery, really. So, I don't know, train, plane, I already mentioned plane. I don't know. Maybe even, sometimes some Transformers can turn into animals as well. That was a spin-off series which did really well.
Yeah. I think one of the things I do find interesting about the Transformers franchise, as you said, is it did start with toys.
Yeah.
I think most other franchises started with a book or a movie or a game, whereas it's kind of interesting that this one started from just toys and has grown into, mentioning there's movies, there's comics, there's multiple generations of TV shows and all these things. It has grown into one of the highest grossing media franchises of all time. It's number 14 in the list currently.
14.
Not as high as what we're going to cover next episode. A little spoiler there, but it's pretty high up there. That's a pretty huge franchise.
It must be at number 1. Obviously, I haven't done hard enough.
Oh, you haven't bought enough Transformers toys to get them up to number 1. Is that your mission in life?
I'm nearly at the age to get a job, so yeah, we're probably gonna need another display case next year.
Yeah, great.
That was fun.
More Transformers, great. But yeah, as you said, it began in the 80s, I think?
1984.
Yeah.
When the actual, Hasbro, who owns Transformers, by the way, they went to Japan and they found all these all cool little transforming robot toys, and they were like, let's make a deal. So they made a deal with the owners of those toys called Takara, who still owns the rights to Transformers. And they brought it all the way back to Hasbro, and they laid it all out. They came up with the name Transformers Robots in Disguise.
That's the classic line, isn't it?
Yep, and then they renamed them thanks to Bob Budiansky, who was a comic book writer and who came up...
Was with Marvel, isn't that right?
Yes.
They kind of approached Marvel for some story elements to then create TV shows and things from, And you mentioned, in terms of plot in general, you mentioned that, they're these aliens from the outer space, from their planet Cybertron. But there's two factions. There's the
Autobots, the good guys, and Decepticons, the bad guys.
And they're quite clearly good versus bad, aren't they? And
it's a classic ploy. Good guys are good and the bad guys are bad.
Yeah. And they've been in war for a long time, haven't
A
they?
long time.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go. That's a little introduction to Transformers in general. And what we are looking at today is the first live action Transformers film from 2007. Because, as mentioned, there have been multiple animated TV shows. And then there's also even been an animated movie from the 80s as well, I think it was. It was kind of linked with the TV show.
It was linked with the 1984 to 1986 TV show with Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime, and it did, like, the animated movie did link up to that, and linked up to all the other episodes, but that movie practically ruined the franchise for a little while.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Because, one, they killed off all of the original, like, 1984 characters,
Even Optimus Prime.
even Optimus Prime.
How could they?
For some reason, not
That's
Bumblebee,
huge.
though.
Oh, right. And that's the Generation 1 kind of era, because it's got different generations, don't they?
So
refer to?
we got Generation 1, Generation Dud, Generation 2, and then we got Beast Wars, Cybertron. It's a whole thing, but
Goes on and
yeah,
on.
Generation 1 started it all.
But anyway, we're at this first live action film. How does that fit in with it all? Is it kind of like a remake, retelling? Does it kind of reset? Because it introduces the Autobots and Decepticons and their kind of war. It seems like it kind of starts from the beginning. Is that right? From
It doesn't.
someone who doesn't know a lot about Transformers?
So it does sort of. So it does. It's in its own little universe where, like, the Transformers, have first come to Earth, and they're, like, looking for the Allspark and all that. Even though, like, if you watched all of the movies, if you're a Transformer fan like me,
All the live action movies.
all the live action movies,
Kill me now.
I heard that. I mean, like, the first two movies sort of mix up the timeline a little bit, but that's all right.
So it's the live action movies are kind of like a reboot, like similar characters, general ideas, but it's kind of new.
Just a reboot, yeah.
So yeah, this 2007 film is directed by Michael Bay.
Yep.
Who is actually the fourth highest grossing director ever.
Not surprised.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that's like he is very known for these action-heavy, perhaps plot-thin, big blockbuster movies, lots of explosions and lots of action. Like, I think he's done almost all the Transformer live-action movies.
He did the first 5,
Okay.
and then he let go. And then he gave them off to some other guy, and he's done the last 2 movies.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that there's so many sequels after this first live-action Transformers movie. It's a pretty huge, actually, media franchise. But yeah, apparently Michael Bay got into this movie pretty much only because Steven Spielberg was involved in production. Like, apparently Michael Bay, in interviews, said he thought it was a stupid toy movie. And he doesn't look very thrilled about that description.
Yeah, well, to be fair, the fans also weren't happy when the designs were released, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, Michael Bay apparently wasn't thrilled on the idea as well. But yeah, came in because of Steven Spielberg. Michael Bay kind of tried to introduce more of this military influence in the film. And look, you get a Michael Bay film. Like, it's giant robots, action scenes.
Giant robots versus giant robots.
Yeah, which I know for a 14-year-old boy who's into Transformers, like, this is it. This is the good stuff. For just about everyone else, like, well, to put it into perspective.
Be very careful.
Well, we often, you, me, Lassie often sit down and watch this movie, and my partner Anna sometimes watches too, and she has fallen asleep during every single Transformers movie. So maybe that gives you a frame of reference for the sort of target audience it's after.
Yeah, we'll try to keep her awake this time.
Yeah. But look, having been critical about it, I must say, because we watched it last night in the lead up to this, that I forget that the kind of first 2/3 of the film I actually quite like. Like, I think a couple of things like really worth mentioning. It's got a lot of humor in it. I always forget that. Like, I kind of think it is that serious action movie, but it's actually got a lot of funny moments, particularly with the Witwicky family. And then the other one is like the effects, especially for the time. Like the actual Transformers and the way they transform, it's still pretty stunning, I reckon. Like, it stands up well. And fun fact on that, the animation and CGI for that was developed by Industrial Light and Magic, which we talked about a little bit in The Mandalorian. They're kind of this big effects kind of department or
Yeah.
company in Hollywood. And they created these Transformer graphics. And apparently it took this company 38 hours to render just one frame of movement initially for the Transformers. They got better at it, obviously. Otherwise, it just wouldn't have worked. But like the amount of detail, it's actually pretty stunning and amazing to think about. And of course, the music actually is pretty good.
Yeah.
It really, I think it actually adds a lot to making this movie not just some action blockbuster. Like it gives it some real heart and emotion, as we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
So, Andy, why don't you give a quick, emphasis on quick, plot description of this particular movie?
So the plot is that the Autobots and the Decepticons, they are looking for this thing called the Allspark, which, like, source of great power. It created them. It like created the entire Transformer race, and some wants to use it for good, some wants to use it for evil. Classic. And the cube was, for some reason, lost in space, and it crash landed on Earth. And the couple of million years later, the Autobots and Decepticons learn that it's somewhere on Earth, and they come to Earth searching for it. So it's a bit of a race for the Allspark.
Yeah, and then, obviously it's not just Transformers involved, like there's human characters, the main one being Sam Witwicky, who his grandfather accidentally...
Great-grandfather.
Yeah, sorry, like it was one of his ancestors kind of stumbled upon a Transformer that had been frozen in the ice. Megatron, the main bad guy.
So he came to Earth. He crash landed due to gravity reasons. I don't know, something about gravity reasons, and the great grandfather, he accidentally activated Megatron's location system, Google Maps system, something like that.
Google Maps, nice.
And it got imprinted, and the coordinates for the Allspark got imprinted on its glasses. And so, the Transformers know that find the glasses, find the Allspark.
Yeah.
Don't care if the boy lives or dies.
And that's how Sam, this main character, gets wrapped up in it all. And there's a love interest and goes on from there.
Yeah.
And so our composer for the film is Steve Jablonsky.
Yeah.
Who is probably best known for scoring these Transformers films. That's kind of been his biggest gig, I suppose you could say. But he's done a few other things. He's composed for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Steam Boy, The Island, Ender's Game, some kind of classic TV shows, Desperate Housewives, and The Sims 3, the video game. He also has additional music credits for lots of other films. So things like Armageddon, Ants, Chicken Run, which we've actually covered on this podcast, Pearl Harbor, Pirates of the Caribbean, a lot of actually quite big films. Additional music credits kind of meaning that he would have contributed some music, but wasn't kind of the main composer. It was just a small kind of credit, which makes a lot of sense because Steve is part of Hans Zimmer's film scoring company called Remote Control Productions, which we may have mentioned on this podcast at some point. I'm not sure we've covered it, but basically Hans Zimmer, he kind of started his, he built his own career as a solo kind of film scoring artist. And off the back of that, he then made this company, which, especially in this early 2000s era, had a pretty big monopoly on the film scoring industry. Most films, especially action blockbusters, they every director was going to his company and saying, "Can you write me a score like you've done before?" And so he would get these teams of new composers, and in a lot of ways it was positive because it give all these composers their start.
Yeah.
But having said that, it kind of meant that all these Hollywood film composers were all composing very similar sounding scores. It was kind of the Remote Control Productions Hans Zimmer sound. So that's why Steve Jablonsky kind of has all these music credits because it's quite collaborative in that company. They kind of help each other out. But for example, other than Steve Jablonsky, composers like John Powell, Harry Gregson Williams, who we talked about Chicken Run, Ramin Djawadi of Iron Man and Game of Thrones fame, Lorne Balfe, Pinar Toprak, there's so many big name composers that either got their start there or still work there.
Yeah.
And when we discuss the actual music of this film, you'll see that a lot, and this is probably one of the criticisms of the music, even though it is quite good, it is very remote control production-y. It has this very not necessarily original sound, but it really works. There's a reason why it became so popular. It works. So essentially, we've got Steve Jablonsky. He had collaborated with Michael Bay before on the movie The Island, and he scored the trailer for Transformers, and that's how he then got involved in the project. So like some of the other franchises like Batman or something like that we've discussed before, there's a lot of pre-existing music for Transformers at this point. It had all these, especially from these animated TV shows, lots of music from there. Some music that I think most people would recognize, particularly the original Generation 1 Transformers animated TV show theme.
Certainly.
Which was composed by Anne Bryant and Ford Kinder, who I had not heard of before past this theme. It seems their careers mostly were involved with Hasbro animated series. But I think it'd be good to have a quick listen to this, even though it might not link in much with our score. This original theme is bizarre. It is good, but it's crazy. Like,
it's 80s.
Well, let's have a listen to it first, and we'll talk about it in a second.
Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers, robots in disguise. The Transformers, more than meets the eye. The Transformers.
The Transformers.
Robots in disguise.
It is really good. It's really catchy. I kind of like it. The reason why I kind of want to listen to it and was saying it's bizarre is because if you try and count along to that song, so, we've talked about lots of different types of counting or times in the music for various scores that we've covered. Sometimes it's in 4, sometimes it's in 3. Let's assume, like, most music is in 4. So let's assume, let's try and count along in 4 to this song. Well, I'll try and do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. It's like, what? How did that? It does not work at all. It is called asymmetric music, and the composer, Anne Bryant, I think it was, said she specifically was trying to write this challenging asymmetric music, which just means there's not really a rhythmic pattern. Like, it's not like you can just count to 4, like 99.9% of music. It messes around, which, considering this is a animated kids TV show about toy robots, that's pretty crazy she did that. Anyway, I wanted to bring it up just because it's an interesting little tidbit. But basically, you've got that pretty well-known theme song.
Yeah.
As you said, very 80s, very like rock,
Yeah.
synth. There's lots of robot noises and sound effects in there as well.
That.
Then, as we mentioned, the animated series movie had a score which does have a bit of a cult following.
Yeah.
By Vince DiCola, who's also composed the music for Rocky IV, which is, again, very 80s, very synth rock heavy, sort of along the same lines as that original theme, but they definitely took it into their own stride and did their own thing.
Which was not a good move for Hasbro, as they left it up to Hollywood to make that movie.
Did it not go well at the time? Is that...
It did not go well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Left an entire
don't know much
generation
about
with
it.
permanent emotional baggage.
I mean, the fact, as you said, that they killed off a lot of the main characters, especially for a kids' TV show, I can imagine distraught little boys, particularly all around the world, watching this Transformers movie and just crying, watching Optimus Prime die.
And all of that was 20 minutes into the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, right. It does sound a
an
bit bizarre.
Hour and 25 minutes, first 20 minutes, killed off everyone.
Oh, that's pretty intense. But anyway, with our current movie, Michael Bay and Steve Jablonsky essentially decided not to reference any of this past material,
No.
any of this past music. So they started with a clean slate.
I mean,
and
they did mention the more than meets the eye in one scene.
yeah, but in terms of the musical style, they're not sort of tapping into that 80s rock synth sound of old Transformers music. Jablonsky said in an interview that I really wanted the music to create an emotional connection between the humans and the Transformers. We wanted the audience to feel for these characters, not just say, wow, they look really cool.
No, they do look really cool.
I mean, they do look really cool, yeah, which we were just talking about before. Wow, they look really cool. But I have to give them kudos here that because you could definitely go down that line of this would just be an action, bombastic score, music to accompany the movie that doesn't have much emotional heart to it, like just action, intense music to go along with the Transformers. Whereas the music in this score does have a real emotional core to it, I think, which once again I think is this movie's saving grace. It really brings that element into the film. So let's get into some themes. There are some clear themes in this movie. There are several themes associated with the Autobots, who, as you said, were the good guys, the good Transformers.
The good guys.
So let's start there. And it's interesting that on the soundtrack album and in interviews, Jablonski specifically outlines that, like, okay, there's an Autobots theme, there's an Optimus Prime theme, who's the leader of the Autobots, and then there's another theme for the Allspark, which you were talking about before, which is kind of this like energy source object that they're all after. It's almost religious to the Transformers. But these themes that are kind of specifically outlined, they're not used very exclusively in the movie. Like, it's not like every time you see Autobots, you get the Autobots theme. It's like it's mixed around quite a bit. The Optimus Prime theme often plays for Bumblebee and all sorts of other things. But let's listen to the first theme, which is called Autobots, and is kind of for all the Autobots and does appear a lot when Autobots are doing good or appear on screen. So you first hear it in the opening monologue of the film, and this is what it sounds like. So that is the Autobots theme.
One of the Autobots themes.
Yeah. And instantly the first thing that strikes me is that, again, it's not this like bombastic, like intense Transformers, robots in disguise theme.
Yeah.
It's like this proud, reverent, noble kind of theme. Initially we hear it on French horn, which is a brass instrument. Brass often used for heroic themes, but it's sort of quite slow and steady, and the French horn's got a little bit of a more mellow sound. So it really kind of gives a vibe that these Autobots are, as you said, good guys. Are kind of like these noble. They almost sound like wary, old, noble warriors.
I mean, like Optimus Prime certainly is.
Yeah, they all sort of have that vibe.
Not Bumblebee, though.
He seems to me to have that sort of vibe. I don't know enough about Transformers. You obviously know other things about them. But that melody, just to outline it. Again, it's very stately, steady on the beat. Not fast notes, not doing crazy stuff, just slowly rising and falling each time. In terms of how it gets this sort of noble sound, basically it's in a minor key, which we've talked about a lot in this podcast. Minor generally means dark. I don't know how to describe that theme as dark, though.
Yeah, certainly not.
Yeah, so what they've done is quite interesting. Like within a minor key or a minor scale, same thing, you can get minor chords, which are dark. But if you stack certain notes from the minor key, you can also get major chords, which are generally lighter. And what Jablonski's done, he's in a minor key, but he's using a lot of the major chords in the theme. So there's a major chord on the 6th note and a major chord on the 7th note. Basically what that means, if you're not into music theory, is that he's kind of got this balance. It's in a minor key, which is dark, but then he's using these lighter sounds, which kind of mixes together to make this serious, but also sort of heroic sound.
Yeah.
There's brightness, but there's also darkness and mingling into this interesting kind of different sound. And we will hear that pretty much exact same chords and harmony used in all these Autobots themes. Again, that's the only thing with this score. One of the things it sticks to a sound pretty generically in a lot of its themes. One other thing I don't know if you noticed, Andy, was the accompaniment, the background. Right at the start, we had these string, as in orchestral strings like violin, doing this very simple.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, and we even talked about this in our one-hit wonder episode with Godzilla. That is such a classic early 2000s Hollywood. Again, Hans Zimmer, Remote Control Productions, little technique just to build a bit of rhythmic energy and background interest. To just outline it, it happens multiple times in this score and in other scores. So I'm just going to quickly play a little montage. There's 2 excerpts from Transformers, 2 excerpts from Batman, which we even listened to in that one-hit wonder episode. And you can hear it's just like the same thing each time. Could you hear that? Dun, 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 dun?
Certainly.
Yeah, it's so classic. You'll hear it once you are aware of it. When you listen to these early 2000 scores like that, it's everywhere. But it works, so you know. Yeah. Now that was actually kind of part A, like the first half of the Autobots theme. Let's listen to the second half, which is kind of treated differently, like it's used by itself at different times. So notice anything different in that part B?
Choir.
Yeah, spot on. Nice job. The choir comes in. There's so much choir in this score actually, which is an interesting choice. Like it's not a standard part of the orchestra that is used all the time. So it's been a very conscious decision to bring in choir. Choir obviously meaning lots of people singing together.
Yeah.
And to me, it kind of, when I hear choir like that, it kind of gives this almost like holy sound to it. Like it makes the Transformers almost the religion of the Transformers. Like it gives them this like they're like holy knights almost, which again, we're looking at giant robots based off toys.
Yeah.
Like why do they deserve this? But it again, it creates like emotional heart to this movie. It sells you on the Transformers as more than just big hunks of metal based off toys. Which really, really good scoring in that way.
Yeah.
I don't know specifically why the choir kind of gives it that religious sound. Probably just because choir historically is used in a lot of religious music in churches and things.
Now, before we move on, so I'm sure you remember the scene where Sam's being chased by dogs. When they were filming that part, I think like the first take, like the first time the actor was ever on the set, like first scene,
Shia LaBeouf. Is that how you say his name? Yeah.
First scene he ever did was running away from those dogs. And so the dogs had like a trainer who would like rile them in, got like these special arm things that the dogs would latch onto. I'm sure some people have seen those. The dogs didn't listen to that guy and kept on running after Shia LaBeouf.
And just chasing him.
Yeah, so first day on the set,
and they look pretty vicious in like they're meant to be kind of wild guard dogs or something that
like
are after
police
him.
dogs or something.
Yeah.
And so first day on set, first day filming the movie, Shia LaBeouf was running practically for his life.
That's pretty funny. That's a good fun fact about it. Yeah, he must have loved that.
Yeah.
But yeah, to finish up on that little bit of music we were just discussing, the Autobots theme and this choir sound, choir in an action score, as we've said, is fairly interesting, but it's also very Hans Zimmer remote control productions-esque. Let's have a little listen to this movie is called Crimson Tide, which was one of Hans Zimmer's earlier sort of films. It's from 1995, and it's kind of not necessarily the first time, but a very clear time where he used choir in an action score.
Yeah.
And you can kind of hear the similarities. Have a quick listen. So could you hear the choir?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a male choir. I think because that movie's about a bunch of dudes in a submarine. I haven't seen it. Hopefully that wasn't an oversimplification. Dudes in a submarine. But yeah, you can hear that kind of choir mixed with French horns doing a kind of heroic sound. Did you think that sounded a bit like Transformers in general?
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. I would agree that it would sound maybe even more than a little bit like Transformers. Again, it's this Hans Zimmer remote control sound. I'm not saying it's exactly the same. It's definitely a bit different, but it's certainly not far away from the same sound. Keep in mind that score was from 10 years previously by Hans Zimmer. And yeah, anyway. So at this point, even just from that one thing, we've kind of captured the palette or the sound of a lot of this film. It's sort of these characteristics of noble kind of steady melodies in this minor key that uses a major sound to make that sort of noble sound. Choir is definitely in there, giving it this holy reverence. And then, of course, there's some other elements like a bit of string accompaniment or some synth pads and things, but they're the kind of the main features. And you'll hear quite a lot of that in this second theme, which is for Optimus Prime, or it is called the Optimus Prime theme. Optimus Prime being
the leader of the Autobots.
Yes, the blue and red one that if you're not familiar with Transformers is the one you'd see pretty much all the time.
Yeah,
if
the one who turns into a truck.
Yeah, that's right.
Big truck.
But even though it's the Prime theme, it's sort of, you see it used a lot, particularly with Bumblebee as well. And Jablonski said that he wanted this theme to really capture the relationship between Sam and the Autobots, specifically Optimus Prime and Bumblebee. So again, it's trying to get to this human connection, emotional heart to the score rather than...
Don't care about all the others, just Optimus Prime and Bumblebee.
Yeah, the others, yeah, pretty much. I reckon that's the vibe. You don't care much about the other Transformers.
I care much.
Well, one of them gets ripped in half in the movie, and I feel like there's... I always forget about that because there's such just kind of a moment where Optimus Prime is like, oh no, and that's it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the other Transformers are kind of just there. So anyway, we first hear this theme when Sam properly meets Bumblebee for the first time and has a conversation. In that moment, it's a little bit stripped down, but we're going to listen to the kind of full version. So pretty similar sound to the Autobots theme.
Certainly.
Obviously a different melody.
Definitely.
We've got this different melody this time going. Which one thing, I quite like the shape of this melody. It's got this initial leap, which is kind of a bit heroic. And then it just kind of eases back. And it just keeps kind of leaping up and then coming back. It's like there's heroism, but again, he's this noble, heroic giant robot man. He's very moral and wouldn't be over the top. Kind of heard it twice in that track. The first time it was played on some sort of flute. I'm not sure what type. Which sounds really nice, but also I'm pretty sure is not in the movie.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, because I think it's quite nice, but this is one of those things where soundtrack albums aren't necessarily just the music taken straight from the film. They're often kind of curated by the composer to be a nice representation, but almost more like an actual album you want to listen to, which I do like the flute. I kind of wish it was in the film, but there you go, it's not. So sad. And then second time when you hear the melody, it's back into that big choir. I think it's more strings this time playing it along, but again, that very holy, noble sound that we're getting familiar with.
Now, before we move on from Optimus Prime and his theme and all that,
I got one more thing to add, but go on.
one little fact about this. So all the Autobots, all their cars were basically modified. So I think Einhide, one of the Autobots, was the only one that wasn't a modified car.
What do you mean?
So
modified?
So they took initial pieces from one car and another piece from another car and sort of slapped them all together.
Are you talking about for the actual set, the cars
For the
they
actual
use for
set.
Oh, right, okay. I
So-
thought you were talking about in general.
Yeah. So
So
I think
custom made, basically.
only Ironhide, which I think is the only Autobot in that whole squadron of 5 who didn't have his car modified.
Oh, right. Okay. That's interesting.
In fact, the people who made it, the people who made that truck, they actually gave Michael Bay 3 of the same car.
Oh, right. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And also, something we didn't mention earlier, because there is this military part of the film. The military actually provided a bunch of aircraft for filming, but you were saying that they provided a bunch of tanks and things as well.
So they didn't provide a bunch of tanks. They provided Michael Bay with a little tank graveyard, what you would call it, old discarded tanks that didn't work, and also not really just tanks. There was also some other vehicles as well, but mostly tanks. And
a tank graveyard, that sounds kind of cool.
And the guy said you can do whatever you want with it. Of course, you're not allowed to get them up and running or anything else without our permission, but you can do whatever you want. You can
It was stuff for Michael Bay to blow up, yeah.
Basically that. And
oh, that's funny.
all the other Autobots, I think Jazz was a little bit modified along with Bumblebee. Optimus Prime and another Autobot called Ratchet. They were all built from scratch.
It's pretty cool. There'd be a lot of set making and stuff involved, yeah. One last point on this, coming back to this Optimus theme. And one of the things we were saying earlier about, write in and tell us your thoughts, because it was really, I thought it was funny when we were watching this film last night and talking about this theme, which I'll just play again to remind you. As I was saying, my partner Anna was sitting with us and she goes, "Oh, it's ABBA."
What?
And Andy and I were looking at her "What?" And then she's like, "Oh yeah, it's I Have a Dream." Let's have a listen and compare. Let's see what you think.
I have a dream.
No.
I do hear it. I definitely hear it. It's there. I'm not trying to say, I don't think Adam's trying to say that Steve Jablonsky got inspiration from ABBA, but you listen to the two melodies, the first, the Transformers one. ABBA. Transformers. ABBA. It's actually pretty similar. It's the exact same contour, just some of the notes are slightly higher. Anyway, interesting.
I mean, like, what was that? What was the movie ABBA was from?
Oh, well, there was that Mamma Mia movie that
Yeah, it was from
used a
Mamma
lot of...
Mia.
Yeah,
Yeah, Mamma Mia was an alright one.
an all right one. All the ABBA fans in the audience are just ready to get you an out.
Mamma Mia was just so strange for me. I mean, like, the guys kicking...
Anyway, we're going on a long tangent. Let's not get into Mamma Mia. But yeah, I always like hearing those little things, even if they're not related at all. That actually does kind of sound similar. So you're right, and if you even hear weird stuff like that, because it's entertaining. So moving on to the last theme we're going to cover in this episode, we're going to listen to the Allspark theme, which, as you were saying before, the Allspark is the
creator of life for the Transformers.
And it's I don't think we mentioned it. It's just a cube,
Just
like
a
literal
literal
cube, like
cube.
an energy source type
I mean,
thing.
with like all this graffiti stuff carved
Graffiti,
into it.
yeah, like inscriptions and ruins and things. And as much as it's the Allspark theme, it definitely does play when you see the Allspark in the movie. It is quite clearly plays there, but it actually occurs for the first time when Bumblebee is rescuing Sam and Megan Fox, whatever. What's the character's name?
Megan Fox.
That's the actress.
That's Sam.
Emma? No. Megan? Oh, no. That's
Katie.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Sam and his love interest. Yeah, so when there's no Allspark even mentioned by that point. So again, these themes are used fairly loosely, but all kind of associated with the Autobots or the Allspark. Let's have a listen. Really lovely theme. I quite like
Certainly.
that one. Yeah.
Really lovely.
I think what's instantly noticeable in that recording as well is what's kind of the main instrument playing that theme.
That the instrument is called a cello, which, if none of you guys know, it is like a violin. It's bigger, I would have to say, and it's still got that stick with the
bow.
the bow
That's thick.
and just rubbing against the strings and all that, but certainly in the same group as a violin.
Yeah, it's part of the strings, the orchestral strings,
Yeah.
and it's got a lower sound than a violin, although it can still go quite high. But it's really lovely sound. I really like the sound of solo cello. The thing is, that's not in the film.
Yeah.
They don't use the cello for it. Again, this annoys me. But again, it's a beautiful choice for the album,
So-
but missed opportunity in the film because it makes it really beautiful. And like, you know, this actually kind of is almost like the holy object of the film. So it's quite nice having that like really almost holy, beautiful sound to it. But yeah, in the film, it's usually just French horns, again, that kind of brass melody. Again, you can hear it's generally, even though, again, a different melody, it's generally in this same sound palette. The harmony, I didn't talk about before for Optimus theme, just like that first theme we listened to, the Autobots theme, it's all in this minor key with these major chords. Slightly different each time.
Yeah.
I was thinking I might even try and like overlay each theme on top of each other, but to Jablonski's credit, he just mixes it up just enough that you can't, it is a little bit different each time, but certainly using this same building blocks, these initial minor chord, and then using these major chords on the 6th or 7th or even 3rd degree. but I do really love the solo cello sound. And actually, whenever I hear solo cello now, it reminds me, in terms of in a scoring context, it reminds me of the Game of Thrones series, because that series, Ramin Djawadi uses cello right at the heart of the whole thing, and it's beautiful. I would love to cover Game of Thrones, but Andy needs a few more years under his belt before that's probably considered appropriate
I
content.
already read the script and I don't even want to watch that.
Yeah, you thought Love Actually was bad. God, we're not watching Game of Thrones together. That will be awkward. I don't want to be in the same room when I watch that. So anyway, disappointing that the cello is not in the film, but again, great choice for the soundtrack album itself. Now, at this point, normally we might kind of listen to how these themes are varied in different ways and listen to how the composer manipulates that. Again, that's probably one of the weaknesses of this score. There isn't a lot of that. We kind of hear the theme and it's either pretty much the same the whole time. They do certainly reoccur, just not in many memorable different forms. They just kind of stick to this stately, holy, noble presentation. Probably the closest thing to a kind of meaningful sort of variation where they're using the theme to create a different emotion is when Bumblebee is captured.
By Sector 7.
By government officials, basically, yeah. Which, Bumblebee is, other than maybe Optimus Prime, is the one you kind of get most attached to. So it's kind of this tragic scene of Bumblebee's just trying to protect Sam and isn't trying to harm any of the humans, but the humans kind of don't know that, and they're kind of forcefully taking him in. And you hear this piece of music, which kind of uses a couple of those themes we just discussed, again, because they're all sort of associated with the Autobots, but it's in a quite slow, sort of mournful fashion. Have a listen. So really all that's happened there is they've just taken out all the synth and percussion, little background bits that normally give it a bit of drive, and they've just let the strings and the choir do what they do best and just be beautiful and lush, and it just makes this sort of tragic, beautiful moment. Kind of almost contrasts with what's on screen, but it works really well. Really gets you in the heart. Like you're watching Bumblebee getting captured and you're just like, Bumblebee, no.
Now, normally I would have feelings about this, but I had no feelings when Bumblebee was being captured.
But surely you love Bumblebee.
I
like
don't.
What?
No.
Isn't he like other than Optimus Prime, and he's like the lovable one.
He's overrated.
He's overrated. Oh, fine.
Got his own movie.
He did, that's true.
Where's Optimus Prime's solo movie?
Just about every movie is Optimus Prime's movie, isn't it?
No.
Probably the only other variations worth noting is probably the last third of this film is just like action. That's where it really steeps off, in my opinion. It's like the first 2/3, I'm always surprised at how much I'm enjoying it. And then it gets into just like pure action land. And I'm like, okay, I remember why these films are like, right. But through all this action music, it's mostly pretty generic kind of action scoring. Does the job, but nothing too memorable. But every now and then you do get a little snippet of a theme in this more upbeat, energized form. So I'm just briefly going to play the Allspark theme, and you can hear it in this action-oriented way. So kind of the opposite before. It's faster. There's more percussion that gives it more drive. The opposite.
I feel like you could kind of hear the vocal cords, the choir.
Yeah, the choir in there. Yeah, they were definitely in there too. But yeah, it's that was only 20 seconds. That's kind of the vibe for the last third of the film. You do get these themes, but they're only there for like a really quick moment, and they're sort of just maybe sped up and added a bit more percussion to give it that action energy. If you liked all the theme, we're at the end of this episode. If you liked all those specific themes, we've still got a lot more to cover in part 2 of Transformers. We haven't even talked about Decepticons or Sam, or there's another track that I actually do think is the highlight of the film, Arrival to Earth, which we'll talk about next time. But if you liked those themes, the final track of this film in the album called No Sacrifice, No Victory is a great compilation of all of these, basically. So check that out if you did like those themes. But yeah.
This is the end of part 1 of Transformers.
Yep. Oh no, we're
If I
almost
had-
over with Transformers. Oh.
If I had my way, I would make this a 3-episode long.
Well, I thought we were going to get through all of it in one episode, I must say. I was like, oh, okay. I know there's some nice themes, but that's kind of it. I must say I've been surprised. There is more good music in this film worth mentioning than I begrudgingly admit.
More than meets the eye.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, more than meets the eye. So yeah, we've still got a lot of Decepticon music. Sam's music, a few other things to check out next episode. So we'll see you next time for part 2 of Transformers. And yeah, we're back for season 3. So we'll see you around.
Bye.